What's up guys, it's Will back again, and today's review is the biographical drama film Darkest Hour. Directed by Joe Wright, Darkest Hour takes place in Britain during World War II, where the newly appointed Prime Minister Winston Churchill, played by Gary Oldman, is faced with the daunting task of war with the German army. Churchill, attempting to lead Britain during their darkest hour, is up against the Nazis that are decimating British forces, and he is given the difficult task of not only navigating dangerous political waters, but also wartime ones as well. During Britain's darkest hour, they turned to Churchill to lead them and other European countries to victory versus Hitler and the German army. Okay, so to start, I didn't have any expectations for this film going in. I didn't even watch the trailer before I went and saw it. I knew obviously it was about Winston Churchill, and it was about World War II and Winston Churchill's role as Prime Minister during World War II and how he approached the Nazi regime and Hitler in general. But I didn't really have any expectations going in because I didn't watch the trailer. I didn't even know who was playing Winston Churchill. I didn't even know that it was supposed to be Gary Oldman, or is Gary Oldman rather. I didn't really know anything about this movie. And I know there have been a ton of movies made about not just Winston Churchill, but about World War II in general, about Nazi Germany. And this is it's a very covered subject. I mean, it's been touched on in a number of different films, but I haven't actually seen a specific film about Winston Churchill, about specifically that follows him through, the whole dilemma of his time as Prime Minister and how he approached this whole situation. But long story short, I like this movie, I didn't love it. I don't really feel like it's one you need to go rush out and see, like need to go run out to your local theater and buy a ticket to see Darkest Hour. Unless you're really a big history buff or a big Churchill fan, you studied Churchill, you know a lot about World War II and Britain and Churchill and all those kind of things. Otherwise, this is a serviceable historical drama film, not gonna blow you away. It's okay. It'll keep you entertained for parts of it, which I'll get into. But it's not really one that, you need to go out and see. Like, it's not really one of the best historical drama films ever made. It's not one of the best biographical drama films either. So I didn't love this film, but there are some things that I did like about it. Gary Oldman is great. He gives a very eccentric performance that will keep your attention when the story doesn't. He does a pretty damn good Churchill impersonation, and he plays a character that's very odd, very quirky, yet likable at the same time. That said though, he can't solely make this movie entertaining. The pacing is pretty messy, there's some great high energy moments, and some stretches of time mixed in with some others that will nearly bore you into hibernation mode. This is the kind of film where you will likely check your phone pretty often. You're going to want to know the time pretty often because it can be boring for stretches of time, for decently long stretches of time. Other times you'll be captivated. That's just, kind of what this movie is. When the movie is at its best, it's giving you an inside look into wartime strategy. The political maneuvering and even the inside look into Churchill's personal life, it isn't really that exciting. It's not really that compelling or even that well done. It's made interesting enough to keep you entertained, but the debates about how to handle Germany and whether or not to surrender to Hitler were definitely the most compelling part of the film. The dialogue was very well written though. Most of the conversations can still, at least keep you mildly entertained, but when it starts going too far into political maneuvering and, his personal life and those kind of things like I mentioned, it doesn't really do much. It doesn't really feel entertaining. It feels like you're just kind of watching a very dry historical drama film that feels sort of like like a documentary. In terms of the boringness, I have a hunch, just a hunch here, that this boils down to historical accuracy. But long story short, I'm making this point to let you know that this movie feels historically accurate. It feels like it emphasized, moments and events your typical drama or your biographical drama film wouldn't have, because the beats either aren't in the right places or they either aren't all that interesting or they don't feel like they're at the right moments. It makes sense if you're trying to, provide like a historical timeline like a documentary would, but for a drama film that focuses on historical events, it either feels out of place or poorly paced or just, very anticlimactic. And they probably did that because they wanted to be historically accurate. And from a technical perspective, you guys can never get, away from one of my videos without talking about cinematography or some technical element. This is a very ugly movie. It doesn't look very good. It has a lot of awkward looking shots, a very dry and bland form of color grading. The lighting is very awkward and very harsh in a lot of situations. Maybe they try to do that to parallel the tone and how dark and grim everything feels for Britain, and they're trying to convey that same sense of emotion. But this is a very ugly film to look at. Maybe you guys don't even realize it, but a lot of viewers are looking for a very emotional experience, a story that, hits you in the feels like I mentioned many times before, but also a story that is appealing visually, something that looks good and is interesting, and this is a very ugly movie to look at. I noticed a lot of technical things that sort of diminished my experience just because of how ugly looking this movie is. It's not a very pretty movie in any way. But in terms of the story, it was kind of weird that this movie oddly lacked emotion. Considering it's a movie about World War II and how desperate Britain is on the brink of pretty much invasion, this movie lacked emotion, and I didn't always feel the stakes that I should have. I didn't always feel like Britain was on the brink of being invaded, like Europe was on the brink of explosion, basically, with Hitler running rampant and the Nazis running rampant through Europe. I didn't exactly feel that because they don't really show you a lot of war scenes. They don't really show you the stakes, really. You kind of are left to imagine that for yourself. I mean, Churchill and other characters sort of try to explain it to you, but nothing ever feels, you don't get a visual representation of the stakes. And that's a big problem because you're not going to feel the emotional heightenedness that you should because the stakes aren't visually shown to you. You have to imagine everything for yourself, and that's problematic. The focus is definitely about Churchill and his strategizing and standing up for what he believes in, and sort of the political maneuvering that he has to do to kind of, stay in power and also to follow his path that he believes Britain should take. And they do cover that stuff, but it would be nice to kind of show that devastation of war. They show it maybe here and there a couple times, but they don't really go too in depth with it. And it would help maybe to also have some sort of excitement to this film. Not that war is exciting, but when you're going to see, a film about war, basically, it'd be nice to actually see some of it and not just the strategical element, but also the practical and boots on the ground kind of feel too. But overall, Darkest Hour is good. It's not a great film. It's a very serviceable, very solid historical biographical drama film. It's totally up to you whether you feel you need to, go rush out and see it. I thought it had an awesome leading performance from Gary Oldman, very well written dialogue, and a strong sense of atmosphere. As for the cons, I thought the film was often boring, it lacked emotion, and it's poorly paced. I'm gonna give Darkest Hour a 6.5 out of 10 and recommend you pass on this one in theaters and just, catch it later somewhere else. Unless you're a big history buff, I don't really think you're gonna find a ton of excitement or joy in this one. So did you guys see Darkest Hour yet? What did you think of it? And if not, let me know why not. And also let me know your favorite movie about World War II. I like Saving Private Ryan and Schindler's List. The Pianist is probably in there too. Probably one of those three for me, just gotta narrow it down. That's all for now though. This is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next review.